Kids to eat them.
What that is? Provision.
Appomattox County Board of Supervisors to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by Mr. Carter with the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, hallowed be thy name. Dear Lord, we thank you for life itself. We thank you each day that you give us. We thank you for all that you do for us, dear Lord. We thank you for our public service personnel. Thank you for our armed forces. Keep them safe, not only abroad, but here also. We ask you to be with the sick in our community, and to be thy will, bring thy health back to them. Now be with us tonight as we carry on the business of the county. What we say and do will be for the betterment of all citizens, and we hope we can carry that through. Now take this meeting, bless it, and bless us as we return to our homes. I ask this in Christ's name, amen.
Okay, next we have the setting of the agenda. The supervisors have the agenda since Friday. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda? If not, we'll take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Mr. Hibbs has moved to accept the agenda. Mr. Wolfskill has seconded. Discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Hibbs? Aye. Mr. Wolfskill? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
I vote aye also. The agenda has appeared. Okay, next we have citizen comment period. This time is provided by the board to allow citizens the opportunity to address the board on issues of importance to the citizens. No individual citizen may be permitted to address the board for more than 3 minutes. Before we call the first citizen, I would like to say that I became aware of the Appomattox Whisper Net claiming that Susan Adams is going to fire Mr. Carter from the DSS board. I want to make it clear to everybody out there, Ms. Adams does not have that authority. Mr. Carter will fill out his full term on the DSS board. So I hope that gets reported out there to the Appomattox Whisper Net so that we can stop this foolishness. Thank you. All right, first up is Dr. Pat Toyunga. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Pat Torrance.
Oh, Torrance, Dr. Pat Torrance, okay.
I believe Brian was before me.
We are putting residents first, non-residents last, as we did during other hearings.
Excuse me, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Pat Torrance. I've been a retired educator for 32 years, well, worked for 32 years. I worked across the state of Virginia in all 137 districts. I've been a teacher. I have taught middle school and I have taught college. I've also had many administrative responsibilities and jobs. Almost 50 years ago, in the mid-'70s, the 4-year-old program was started here in Appomattox County. We were one of the first in the state of Virginia, and as a result, we had frequent visitors from all over the state to review our program. We were taking the lead. It was at the time that industry was coming into our county, and a good school system helped that. Press forward to 50 years today. Instead of 25% indigent students, as it was 50 years ago, we now have at least 35% or more indigent students. We should be going and gaining instructional classrooms for 4-year-olds, yet we're decreasing. Your actions tell us that you're not community-minded nor community supportive. You're not thinking about our general population here in Appomattox County, nor of its current needs. Public school education is the only environment that builds a democracy. I said only environment that builds a democracy. And that is a quote from Horace Mann. Recently, a survey was completed by the learning care facilities here in our county, and they found out that there are 34% of our 4-year-old students that are not being served. I asked you to talk with our local public schools to confirm these statistics. This loss of matching funds is a mega loss for our county and our students. And we would be the only ones in the state of Virginia, or the only district to not receive these funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Torrance. Next, Mr. Lou Longdecker.
Everyone wants their children to have an opportunity to succeed academically and be able to participate in a variety of sports or activities, whether it's wrestling, chorus, FFA, or whatever their interest may be. Most people want to leave it better than they found it and hope their children will have more opportunities than they had. This board's funding priorities have made that a challenge. Recently, as additional matching funds were made available, many area school boards and boards of supervisors saw this as an opportunity to maximize their educational resources and made it happen through positive communication as both boards worked together. What happened locally? The board denied the request. Our superintendent stated that there will most likely have to be cuts to capital improvements, school transportation, and some programs. Then, those that voted against it boasted on social media about allocating more than the absolute state minimum. Appomattox is consistently at the bottom of Region 8 when it comes to educational funding. According to VDOE, Appomattox currently has the 11th lowest local funding contribution out of all of 131 Virginia's school divisions. Yet, to the credit of the faculty and staff of Appomattox County Schools, our kids have some of the highest scores, assessment scores in the area. My kids have been in the school system for the last 11 years, from the bus driver that picks up our youngest each morning on the special needs bus to the educators at all 4 schools. From band to world history, the school system is full of wonderful people that do their best for all students. For decades, they have done it with minimal financial support and compensation, and that's not right. I have taught in a neighboring county for the last 20 years, in a district with great students, however, with a higher poverty rate than Appomattox. I don't make much, but if I were to make a lateral move and teach at Appomattox, it would be a 5-figure annual pay cut. If this matching fund opportunity is not approved, It will make an already difficult task more challenging and surely have an adverse effect on children's education. With most of my experience at the middle school level, I know with decision making, there are good days and bad days. Maybe some on the 29th woke up on the wrong side of the bed or possibly skipped a breakfast and thus decided to pass on this wonderful opportunity to support our schools. Today's a different day, and there's time to make it right. In the long term, it's going to take effort, collaboration, sustained, honest communication between all stakeholders to get Appomattox County Public Schools out of the educational funding cellar. Gentlemen, we can do better than last place. In the short term, we must approve the local match request. And in doing so, this board can take a step forward in leaving it better than they found it.
Thank you, Mr. Longdecker. Mr. Lloyd Page?
Good evening. My name is Lloyd Page, and since March 2021, I've lived over on Mountain Cut Road. I'm a career educator and I've worked in Nottoway County Public Schools since 2005. At first, I was a teacher and coach, and since 2018, I've been the principal of Crew Primary School. When I lived in Nottoway and was still teaching, I took great interest in the governing process and spoke regularly at the school board and board of supervisors meetings. After hearing the scuttlebutt that this board was not going to provide the locality's $350,000 match of the lottery incentive fund, I figured I would come and do my civic duty and complain. I've read several places that this board funds the required local effort at about $1.5 million over the required amount. It seemed like it was boasting on Facebook and other places. In reality, this extra amount ranks 13th worst in the states when compared to what other locals give for their RLEs. In comparison, it's about 30% extra, while the average is near 80%. That's across the states. It also puts our per pupil funding near the bottom of Virginia school divisions. This board pitches in about $3,000 per student, which is pretty low in the state and the absolute lowest in Region 8 when comparing just local funding. When you combine the paltry local funding with the state amount, the federal amount, et cetera, it's about $13,309, which is the seventh lowest in the state and lowest in Region 8 by far. By withholding this $350,000 that the school board is requesting, you are also costing them over $1 million in state matching. This is a huge hit that will take this minuscule per pupil funding even lower. And I'll also join, and I will defer to Dr. Torrance there. She seems a little more intelligent than I am. I saw one other county that didn't provide it, Highlands, but I'll take her word for it. So you'll be either the first one or the second in the county in the state that don't do it. When talking about salaries in comparison to the rest of Region 8, Appomattox starts at 7th out of 12th for teachers with no experience. By the time they get to 15 years experience, teachers earn the 10th highest in the region out of only 12 schools. For those at the top of the scale, they slide all the way to number 11 out of 12. I know several educators that live in Appa but travel to other counties because the pay is better. In fact, when I applied here all the way back in 2014-ish for an AP gig, I would have been taking a pay cut for the money I was making just teaching and coaching. What teachers and staff do with this small amount is pretty amazing. The following data includes Region 8 and several other divisions in the area with only one high school. The elementary school and the middle school rank in the top third of this particular field in regards to their SOL test scores. The high school has the third highest SOL test scores with this field. So they're doing pretty good work with very little effort. So I do request that you guys rethink your decision with giving the school board the $350,000 extra dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Next, Mr. Watkin Abbott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Watkins Abbott, 8043 Old Courthouse Road here in Appomattox. And I might take a little bit different look, having worked with you all on the budget. I appreciate what job you've done. I've heard all this ranking, but we rank one of the best managed counties in the state. And I appreciate you all holding the line when you have to. There was some question about making some of the Corvette positions full-time. I was here 4 years ago, and when we appropriated those, the agreement was with the school system that these were temporary, and when Corvette money ran out, they ran out. I appreciate the teachers. I appreciate our fine education system we have here. But I would point out, those people who are criticizing you all, saying you're not giving money, are not looking in the right way. They need to look at their school board. And if you doubt that, Year before last, the system had $700,000 surplus. Last year, it had $900,000 surplus. The money's there to do what they want to. They've always been able to do what they want to, but it's handling the money prudent. I think you all did the right thing. I hope you will continue to manage your finances like they are. And I would remind you, one of the poorest ways to influence government, and it never works, is try to get in the media. Get on TV, get on the news. It doesn't work. Get the voters to say it. But I will tell you, you haven't heard anything from the voters. Because when I go out there, and I don't believe this, but 2 or 3 of the people in this county, Appomattox County, think you're spending too much on education. I don't believe that. I think we're sending about right. But thank you for the fine job y'all did.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Up next, we'll go into the non-resident, Mr. Brian Allgood.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, ladies. See if I can get this a little closer. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Allgood, and I have been the band director in Appomattox County for the last 13 years. I would like to begin by saying thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak tonight. I have 5 points I'd like to address. My first point, I encourage you to make an amendment tonight to approve the $350,000 to ensure the school division will be able to receive the $1.2 million in order to participate in the state incentive program funding for schools. I read a statement from the board that says this incentive money doesn't exist. I encourage you to please do your research, as it absolutely exists, and it is very beneficial to our division and the thousands of students that attend every day. Number 2, if the county simply didn't have the money, I think people would better understand. But it's hard to understand not approving this for the school system and spending millions of taxpayer dollars on a new facility and new boardroom. I also feel we could use some of the over $20 million that currently sits in our bank account. I feel like the $350,000 could be taken from one of those accounts or projects, and we could all win without raising tax dollars. I feel that losing $1.2 million is just not fiscally responsible. Number 3, my next point is that the Appomattox County Public School Division has the lowest per pupil expenditure rate in Region 8 and one of the lowest in the Commonwealth, meaning we spend the least from my locality on students than anyone around us and are at the bottom in the state. I have heard from multiple sources that the board thinks these numbers are not correct, but these numbers come directly from the Virginia Department of Education and are calculated the same way for all county public schools. Number 4, this is not about the Sheriff's Department getting more deputies. They have needed them for a long time. Robbie Richardson is one of my dearest friends, and I feel safer in this county every day because of his leadership. But I will tell you this, if the schools continue to be underfunded and cut, you're going to need to hire a lot more deputies, because when kids have nothing to do after school, most of the time trouble comes along with that. Underfunding the schools will result in cuts that may leave kids with nothing to do after school. My last point is to address all the rumors spreading around Appomattox. I always hear that the school system wastes a lot of money and is underhanded about doing things. I hear that we already, quote, spend too much money on education. But I can assure you, because I've checked, every dollar we spend goes to the betterment of our students in Appomattox. We do not spend a dime as a school division that is not tracked, on the record, and regularly audited. If you think we're wasting money, I encourage you to go check at the school board office and see what the money is being spent on. In closing, I understand in today's world that public education is not loved by all, but hear me out. Public schools are the foundation and building block of success all over America, especially in our little town. Most of the people in this room came through our public schools. The leaders, the sheriff, the businessmen and women, and many others. We have to properly fund tomorrow's success and tomorrow's leadership. So I will end like I started. Please make the amendment tonight so we can always truly be the power of one in Appomattox County. May God richly bless you.
Mr. Allgood, did you please state your address?
What?
Please state your address for the record.
8634 Sugar Hill Road, Brookneal, Virginia.
And thank you for getting your facts straight tonight, other than what you posted in your initial Facebook page.
Now, my facts are straight on both sides, but I appreciate it.
All right, next up is Troy Engel. Or Engler, Eagle. Please state your name and address.
Toy Eagle, 250 Kiowa Road, Lynchburg, 24504. My name is Toy Eagle, and I have spent the past 2 years as a testing and truancy specialist at the high school. I stand here before you today to voice my grievances with the decisions you all have chosen. There is no question that school funding can be complex. However, the numbers break down to simple math. In researching myself, there has been a lot of chatter over the amount of funding our school board has requested. So I analyzed these numbers from a sister county with roughly the same population, which was Buckingham County. After some explanation and debate between the school board and the Board of Supervisors, they were fully funded at their ask, which was slightly over $9 million. This is significantly higher than Appomattox. Buckingham County has approximately 1,900 students, and we're sitting at over 2,300. A reduction of funding could in turn impact Appomattox's families that utilize Bright Beginnings. Where would these students go? How would these parents continue to maintain employment? The Data US reports that 13.8% of Appomattox already lives below the poverty line. This is 1.4 times the poverty rate in Virginia and 10 times higher than the national average. To put simply, we can't afford a program that is geared towards early education, exposure, intervention, and educational tools to be put into place to meet their needs educationally early on. We as parents already struggle to find care for our children, especially those in the 3 to 5 year age bracket. In addition, even though COVID has been long gone for years, as a testing specialist, I have seen firsthand how much education has been impacted. Even now, literacy is at a major concern, but this is coupled with many factors that are impacting our youth. Another being chronic absenteeism in Virginia. Virginia has seen in the mid-20s for percentages of students that fall into chronic absentee. We have worked very diligent to bring these numbers down to a reduction, and a reduction in funding is only going to hurt. Who do you think is going to stay home to watch these younger siblings when they're out of school or when parents have to work to provide for their family? It will be the older ones, I can promise you. These are our children, our future, potential leaders. What message are we sending? The precious asset that cannot be returned is minimized. Our education is important. Appomattox needs this funding.
Thank you, Ms. Eagle. I want to thank you all for speaking tonight, and it would be my hope that you would be this passionate next budget season and attend the individual budget seasons before we get to this part. It'd be much easier to work if we knew all this information during the process rather than after all the decisions have been made. But thank you again for appearing. At this time, the scheduled items are provided by the board to allow, outside the county government to discuss matters importance to the board. The first item up is the Robert J. Jamerson Library Board Trustees has requested to appear before the board to discuss the state aid fellowship for the library director, MLS. Mr. Brandon Barney, Library Board of Trustees Vice Chair, and Ms. Cindy Shue, Library Director, are present to address the board. So if those two would like to come up and present to the board the state aid fellowship information.
Good evening, Board. Brandon Barney, Vice Chair of the Library Board. Just to give y'all a little update about what's going on, we have hired our full-time director, and also we've awarded her a fellowship through the Library of Virginia, which takes some of the state aid money that we receive and allows her to complete her schooling. But what we need through Ms. Adams, I'm not sure if you want to do it here or I can email you, is just another line item in our budget. No more money. We don't need any money. Just another code so we can move funds around from other parts of our budget to that. That's it.
Ms. Adams, you got it?
You got it?
I've got it. In response to what you're saying, we will have to appropriate new funds because that would be money to supplement into it.
No.
Typically what happens, I talked to the state, we had a conference call Ms. Shue and myself, and I think Ms. Ford. And there is a portion of the state aid, the library state aid, that goes toward the library director's position. And because she's not currently certified, they can't really put the state aid toward the position. So there's this fund that they're talking about that can help offset the cost of her education expenses. So it will be rolled from the director's salary into this new line item, but that doesn't change her pay in any way. It just won't be supplemented to county funds.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Any questions from the board? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome aboard. How do you pronounce that? Shue? Shue. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Mr. John Spencer, purchasing agent, is requested to appear before the board to provide an update on the Department of Social Services building.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to come tonight. Before I start out, I'd just kind of like to give you a little bit of a background as to how we got to where we are today with the work at the building that houses in the basement level, the Department of Social Services. Back in early December, this is 6 months condensed for you, but back in early December, there was a sewer backup. DSS called a third-party tester to conduct environmental air quality testing. The test indicated that mold was present, but not the black mold that is the most hazardous and also has been the subject of some of the rumors in the community. There was no black mold that was discovered. The tester developed a remediation plan, a set of protocols that we then contracted with ServPro to carry out. And over the course of a 2-3 week, ServPro remediated the issues dealing with the mold in that building. And once they were finished, for whatever reason, the tester was a little slow getting back to conduct the post-remediation testing. So when the test did come back, the test results indicated there were a few issues that had popped up. ServPro came at their own expense and took care of those issues as well. So both the tester and ServPro indicated to me that, quite frankly, the mold will come back, whether it's tomorrow, next week, next year. It will come back until you take care of the water infiltration issue. So that leads us kind of to where we are right now, the next step. We have water infiltration, and we also do have some foundation issues in that building. So we have two proposals. These were discussed at the Facilities Committee meeting a couple weeks ago. And one proposal is from JES and addresses both of the issues, water infiltration and foundation issues, for a price of $128,099.10. Fortress Foundation addresses both issues for $115,954.08. Or if we were to choose so, we could just do the water infiltration for $39,305. Both companies use similar methods, though there are differences. Both companies trench along the foundation inside of the wall, so basically in the living area, not outside. And then they use sump pumps to move the water out. The details differ in how they do this, really, but that's the concept is the same. Same on the outside as far as dealing with the say the settling or destabilization of the foundation. The issues, in general, they deal with the same way, just different details. Both provide warranties for the lifetime of the building, and this warranty is transferable. So, if, say 10 years down the road, county would decide they want to sell the building, the warranty would transfer to the new owner. Also, neither will warrant any work if we were to so choose to have it done on the outside of the building as opposed to the inside. with the inside trench and sub pumps. If we did it the outside method, the traditional French drain, they would do it somewhat grudgingly and not warrant it because they said it will fail with the way our soil is. It was good once, it failed, and they said it will fail again. Also, we would probably tear up about half of the parking lot out front of the school board office in order to actually be able to do the work, because you have to, for every foot you go down, you have to go back so many feet just so you have stabilization of earthen walls as they're trying to do their work. So, as I said, the facility committee discussed this issue a couple weeks ago, and they had recommended contracting with Fortress Foundation for the $115,954.08 that would be to take care of both the water infiltration and the foundation stabilization issue. Now, Fortress basically requires a 30% down payment before we start, before they even schedule. So we would get the deposit to them this week. They would schedule. They would be about, give or take, 5 weeks from the start. That would be late July, early August. Take about a month to complete everything. Then on top of that, there would be some finishing work in there. There were walls, floor coverings, ceiling tiles that will have to be replaced. So that will be between maintenance and/or third-party vendors. So at that point, it will be later in the year, but by all means, it should be by the end of the year, I would assume, that DSS could be back in that building. So at this point, I would ask that you consider the recommendation of the Facilities Committee to contract with Fortress Foundation.
Any questions from the board? Since that's regular purchasing, do we need Ms. Adams, do we need a motion on that, or?
If the board could accept that procurement offer, then we could proceed with the work.
Is there a motion to accept the procurement offer?
So moved.
Mr. Jones has moved to accept the offer. Second?
Second.
Mr. Carter, second. Discussion? All right, roll call vote. Mr. Wolfskill?
Aye.
Reverend Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Hibbs? Aye. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
I vote aye also. The recommendation to accept the proposal from
Fortress.
Fortress has been approved.
Thank you.
All right, next up are action items. We have, first of all, the FY 2025 Budget Appropriation Resolution. After a duly advertised public hearing on Monday, May 20th, 2024, to receive public comments on the proposed FY 2025 budget, the board considered the request. They have held the advertised special called meeting on Wednesday, May 29th, 2024, and have approved the FY 2025 budget. Staff has prepared a resolution for our approval to appropriate the funds to the line items as specified on July 1 of 2024. Staff recommends approval of this budget FY 2025 appropriations resolution effective 1 July as presented. And for Mr. Wolfskill's benefit, since this is his first time on the board, all this does is put the money into the bank accounts of the agencies that you've already decided to fund. So this affects the budget no way. It just gives the budget just puts the budget into the checkbook of the people receiving the funds so that they can continue to operate after July 1. Okay, the appropriation resolution fiscal year 2025. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County, Virginia hereby appropriate for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025 from the funds for the functions and the amounts herein totaling $53,994,504. Be it further resolved that the county treasurer be and is hereby authorized to transfer from the general revenue funds pursuant to this resolution as monies become available, and from time to time to meet the expenditures for amounts appropriated sums equal to but not in excess of the appropriations indicated for transfer, as transfer to schools operations and transfer to Department of Social Services for period covered by this appropriation resolution. Other interfund transfers shall be in accordance with direction of the Board of Supervisors. Is there a motion to approve this resolution? So moved. Mr. Hibbs has moved. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Wolfskill, second. Discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead, Reverend.
Go ahead.
Before I vote on any subject, I like to try to collect as much information as possible to make a conscientious decision.
Well,
Go ahead.
this resolution is strictly to give the money to the departments to appropriate the money. I don't think that legally we can do any changes to it at this time, other than, I don't know. Yep.
No, what's on your agenda is simply to appropriate the money. To make changes to the budget, you could certainly make a suggestion tonight, but you'd have to re-advertise. It could not be done at this meeting. You all do have to adopt the budget by
July.
June 30th.
June 30th. Thank you. So,
And actually, I have two items. I'll address the school topic first. Each year, the state tells each locality what they need to give the educational system. And each locality in turn will give whatever they can give and do give. But we went back, we went back, Ms. Adams was requested to go back the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Is that right?
To 2016.
Go back to 2016 and look at what the actual requirement was and what the actual expenditure, not expenditures, but the county gave to the educational system. And looking at this, you know, I have always been pro-education. There's no question in my mind. That's our future. But I don't have the answer that I would like to have in order to make a conscientious decision. For an example, now, Ace, can you put that up? Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Adams.
That may not be, that's not the one. Yeah, you probably said the wrong one.
Hmm?
Sorry, I don't think it's that one.
Don't have it.
I don't think so. You just said, these are the years.
Okay, for an example. I need to start at what, 24? Could start at 25, but let's start at 24. The state required $5,488,901. The county budgeted above that $1,316,100. I just can't get my numbers right. $1,316,166. Now, state required $5 million. We being Appomattox County, went $1,316,000 over. Not under, but over. FY '23. State required $5,340,663. The county went over $1,464,404. FY '22. State required $5,075,408, $5,075,408. $1,171,480, and the county went $1,171,476 over. 21. State required $5,035,294, and the county went over $533, and that was it. FY 20, the state required $4,913,876. The county supplied $1,052,339. FY 19, state required $4,852,749,000. The county budgeted or went over the required $1,113,466. I hope everybody sees there's a leverage here, a numerator. FY 18, state required $4,647,932. The county budgeted over $1,318,283. It's two more here, but it's the same thing. So it tells me that we have not neglected the school system. Now, if I'm wrong, I want somebody to tell me that, because here it is black and white. You've already spoken, excuse me. The school has a CIP fund. We started giving back to the school any amount that was left over from each previous fiscal year. And going back, giving it back to the school, they do what they want to do with it. But it goes to a CIP fund. And that fund now has gotten up to, what is, Ms. Adams? Do you have that before you?
The total amount from the FY '23 through 2018 funds, a lot of that has been spent also toward projects, but through that time, it's been an additional $7,005,643.
And that's over the CIP. Uh-huh. So to date, right now as we speak, how much is in that fund?
It's on your reappropriations resolution.
Huh?
It's on this one sheet that you're going to reappropriate tonight.
$907,212. $900,007,212.
Well, Mr. Carter, if I may?
Yeah.
On this reappropriating resolution for moving carryover funds from FY '24, the total school fund amount is $4,549,016.77.
Okay.
I will add that Dr. Tibbs had communicated some of that has already been encumbered toward projects, but we have to reappropriate the entire funding amount so that they can pay those bills in FY '25.
So I have a problem with recognizing why is it that the county is getting slammed so bad for not appropriating enough funds. Well, that's not true. 24, 25.
I must remind that the citizens' comment period is over, and if you continue to make outbursts,
So the county is supplying efficient funds and more and above. Well, I don't believe that. For some reason, I don't believe that. Well, like I said, it's here in black and white. So when it comes time for me to vote, it makes it very, very hard, even though as much as I love education and children, I don't want to take anything away. But on the same token, I don't want the taxpayer to be hit with any more money. And you can't have both sides of the sword. So I probably more likely will have to vote no on that. Now, I've got one more, but I'll let this rest.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to approve the appropriation resolution appropriating the funds in the current approved budget for FY 2025 to the accounts for spending starting 1 July. Are we ready to vote on the resolution to appropriate the funds for the FY 2025 budget?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jones?
I'd like to make some comments.
This is what you.
The county has done a wonderful job with the limited amount of money that we have. My concern is, and I've been pondering this, and by the way, the media contacted me, and as far as transparency goes, it was my duty to answer their questions. But I would like to say, first of all, I've been in the trenches in Appomattox for 44 years. And one of the groups that I worked the most with was underprivileged, at risk, and I've seen the residual damage that has been done, and it didn't have anything to do with the Board of Supervisors. But those at risk are the ones that are going to be hurt the most. And I've been thinking, I said, okay, where is this 830,000 or whatever it is, where is it coming from? And then I had a light bulb moment. That $800,000 is taxpayer money, Appomattox money, that the governor, the Republicans, the Democrats wanted to get to education. So why would we turn down $800,000 in Appomattox taxpayer dollars coming back to the county? Now, I know tonight we're voting on putting this money in the county, but I would ask my fellow board members to consider finding a way that we can appropriate and bring those Appomattox tax dollars back into Appomattox. And it's very interesting to me that only one other locality in the whole state of Virginia turned down the governor's money. The Democrats and the Republicans tried to get to education. I just think it's not good governance to turn down $800,000 of Appomattox taxpayer money, because that's where the money is coming from. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on my position on that. And my number one priority since I've been in Appomattox, I had 3 priorities: children, children, children. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wolfskill.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Some of you know my story, some of you don't know my story. I was horribly abused as a little kid for many, many years. Throughout my life, I worked with at-risk kids. I started programs across the country with horses for at-risk kids. I write children's books. I love children. Children are my passion. So are taxpayers. Counting all the monies, federal, state, and local county total budget this year is $53,900,000. Of that, the Appomattox Public School receives $32,600,000, 60% of all county spending. However, Appomattox County also spends directly another $1,500,000 not included in the school operating budget, and it is absorbed in the county operating budget for school resource officers, school debt, and private day education. So the county actually awards Appomattox County Public School a total amount of $34,100,000, or a whopping 63.14% of all the county budget. $53,400,000 minus $34,100,000 leaves $19 million for all remaining county government operations. I'd like to address the statement that was put out regarding the spending does on the school construction, maintenance, and repair, the school resource officers, and private day education. Regarding the school construction and the debt of the county, that shouldn't be allocated to the school budget. This position that the school belongs to the county is bizarre. We could say then, for what purpose did the county incur that debt and build those schools? Regarding the private day education, that number is in fact $217,000, $286 for 23 cases this year. That's the county contribution, that's not pass-through money. Regarding the school resource officers, indeed, the sheriff hires, trains, and employs them. But why? For the school. To pretend this is a sheriff line item is illogical. Would we rather the sheriff did not supply our children with protection? As to the pitting, the $300,000 against the $1 million, the school receives a lump sum check of $7,300,000, which is $1,500,000 over the state's requirement. The school chooses which programs to fund, not the Board of Supervisors. To select a program geared to helping at-risk youths as their battering ram is pure posturing. While we're on the subject of providing for at-risk youths in the county, I'd like to note, out of our remaining monies, that $19 million, we fund Children's Services Act program, Horizon Mental Health, Department of Social Services, and Central Virginia Health. An additional $4,600,000, leaving $15 million for all other county expenditures. And I'll close with this thought. These are numbers that are real hard facts. I can't speak for the board or the county administrator, but there's only so much money to go around. I feel a responsibility to all the taxpayers of our county. To choose to make a battle over a perceived loss is unfair to our community. Remember, Appomattox County Public School has a taxpayer-funded account from which they could withdraw to cover whatever they feel is lacking. Lastly, perhaps folks should attend school board meetings for further debate. I don't know for sure, but it seems that way to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griscoe. Again, we have the resolution on the floor to appropriate the funds. Any other?
I just wanted to make a comment that if the school is opting not to accept the 800 and some thousand, we have to reduce that from this budget number, because right now it's accounted for in the budget. I just need to know.
All righty, board, you just heard the number is in the budget. If the school's gonna turn that money down, then we gotta amend the budget to take that money out of the budget.
And that is a report directly from Virginia Department of Education, so if there's question about it.
And since everybody else put their 2 cents in, I remember last year, and I wish that you'd all appeared at the joint school board, Appomattox County Board of Supervisors budget meeting and been there, because in that meeting, this issue was discussed. And the school board says, if you can't pick up that $350,000, at that time it was only $297,000, we can do it out of our $4.9 million carryover fund. And when I look at this, and I've commended Dr. Bennett before on the way that she's frugal with the spending, but we're sitting here and she's showing very well that she can manage the money. Almost $500,000 carryover for FY '24, $900,000 carryover for FY '23, $900,000 carryover for FY '22, $500,000 carryover for FY '21. That's a heck of a lot of carryover. If we're not giving the school enough money to operate on, why is there such a big carryover every year? Especially almost $1 million there 3 years in a row. The school board selects what programs to fund, not this board. And I've had calls that, yeah, raise my taxes so we can give the more money. Just try and raise the taxes and see, this room would be twice as filled if we tried to raise taxes. Call the question. Approval of the appropriation 2025 fiscal year. Mr. Whipskill?
Aye.
Mr. Jones? Aye. Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Mr. Hibbs? Aye. I vote aye also. The resolution appropriating the FY fiscal year 2025 funds is approved. Next is the reappropriation resolution for fiscal year 2025. Reapportionment means these are FY '24 carryover funds that must be moved into the FY '25 budget. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County, Virginia, hereby reappropriate for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025, from the funds for the functions and in the amounts indicated herein. General fund carryover from FY '24, the American Rescue Fund, $2,560, $273.96. In school operating fund carryover, total school fund, $4,549,016.77 for total expenditure carryover of $7,109,209.73. Be it further resolved that the county treasurer be and is hereby authorized to transfer from the general revenues pursuant to this resolution as monies become available and from time to time to meet the expenditures for amounts appropriated sums to equal but not in excess of the appropriations. Indicate for transfer as transfer to schools operations for the period covered the reapportionment resolution. Other interfund transfers shall be in accordance with direction of the Board of Supervisors. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution? So moved. Mr. Tibbs has moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Reverend Jones? Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Carter?
I would like to once again repeat myself on the Civil War Museum, the $15,000 that we have been appropriating for years to them. This is money, we're not giving them money. This comes back to us in tourism formulas. So it's not an expenditure to us, the county. So I don't know, I can't understand why we do not afford the $15,000 and put it under operating reserves.
Okay, appreciate your comments, Mr. Carter.
Matter of fact, I'll make a motion that we do that.
Oh, we have a motion on the floor now that takes precedence. Mr. Carter, you can make that motion under new business. Any other discussion on the reappropriation resolution? Hearing none. Mr. Wolfskill.
Aye.
Mr. Reverend Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Hips.
Aye.
Mr. Carter.
Aye.
I vote aye also. The reappropriation resolution for fiscal year 2025 is approved. Okay.
Now I'll make that motion,
All right, Mr. Carter.
that we take $15,000 out of whatever line item and put the operating reserve and put it in to the American Civil War Museum as accordingly.
Mr. Carter, if I heard the county attorney right, in order to do that, we have to suspend the budget and have public hearing to amend the budget, and we may not get that all done in time to give them money on July 1st.
I understand that, but we must move.
What is the procedure?
I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, is it something that's already budgeted And you simply want to move it?
It's a line item transfer.
Yeah, line item transfer.
So the budget wouldn't change?
No.
Somebody would have to give up the 15,000.
So what?
Somebody would have to give up the 15,000.
That'd be us.
Somewhere to move it there.
That'd be us. Take it out our operating expense budget.
I think under rules of order, in order to handle this, I need to add a new item to the agenda.
Yes, sir. And I believe your bylaws state, and it may just be for supervisor comments, that you're not going to take up new matters, but that may only be for supervisor comments. So at the very least, the first motion would have to be to now amend the agenda that you all have approved and allow for new motions. Does that make sense?
So it's like we have a choice. Either we have to amend the agenda or add it to the agenda of the July meeting, Mr. Carter. What would be your preference?
Amend the agenda.
You gotta go back to the original.
Pardon?
You gotta go back to the original vote.
Go back to the original vote.
We'd have to have a consensus of the board members to add it to the agenda
Uh-huh.
right now.
And that's the way
Okay.
that I like to see it go through. I mean, I can't even imagine that we not do it.
All right, what's the consensus of the board? To add this new business to the agenda or refer it to July?
Is there a motion on the floor?
It's looking for consensus to whether or not to add this now or move it till July. Add this item to the agenda for right now or to add it to the agenda in July rather than amend this month's motion, agenda.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Don't everybody speak up at one time.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hibbs.
We can do whichever. I think since we had already decided that we weren't going to fund them in the budget that we had already approved, I think whether we vote on it now or vote on July, I think the outcome's gonna be the same because the majority of the board already decided not to fund it. We can add it to the agenda. In my opinion, we can add it now. I'll vote no to it. I mean, I'm not saying this to be rude. I'm just saying I think the outcome of this is gonna be the same. I'll support your desire to add it now, if you want to. I'm just telling you, I'm gonna vote no.
That's why I want to add now, because I can't understand logically how we can vote no. If somebody would tell me that.
I'll support Mr. Carter's, I guess it's a motion, if that's a motion, to add it to the agenda now.
I thought that took unanimous vote to add something to the agenda.
That's what I'm looking for.
It does, that's what I'm asking for. If you don't, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Mr. Hibbs.
If you don't, then it's gonna get added to the agenda in July anyhow. So there's no sense not doing it now. I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I don't care. You guys decide what you want to do.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't understand what Mr. Wolfskill said.
Well, it takes a unanimous approval to add it to general. Add it to the agenda now.
We don't have that.
Take a what?
Well, that's up to you guys.
Unanimous approval to
Oh.
amend the agenda.
No, I'm saying I support adding it to the agenda, but the result is gonna be no.
Yes.
So him and I support adding it to the agenda now.
I'm fine with adding it to the agenda now.
All right.
You got it.
Okay, it's been added to the agenda.
Just do it.
Well, let's do it now before the next item.
Make a motion.
Yes, motion to be made.
So as I understand it, Mr. Carter's made the motion to move $15,000 out of the operating reserve and for the line item for the American Civil War Museum. Is there a second? Second. Reverend Jones has seconded. Discussion? Mr. Hips has already made his opinion. I didn't know if Mr. Wolfskill wanted to chime in.
I did last time.
All righty.
Call for a vote.
Motion's been made and seconded. Call for a vote. All those in favor of line item,
Roll call.
or paying, the line item transfer, right?
Roll call.
Yeah.
$15,000 for American Civil War Museum. Mr. Wolfskill?
No.
Reverend Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Hips?
No.
I vote no also. All right, next on the agenda is victim coordinator. The county administrator and Commonwealth attorney have been in communication with the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services to request reallocation of funding from the authority of the county administration to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. The county has to submit a letter verifying that we are in support moving the program under the Commonwealth Attorney. Recommendation is to authorize the county administrator to prepare a letter to the Department of Criminal Justice communicating the Board of Supervisors' support to redirect the Victim Witness Program funding to the Commonwealth Attorney's Department. Do you need a motion of approval on that, Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Adams would like a motion for her to write a letter to the Department of Criminal Justice communicating our request to move the victims' witness coordination money into the Commonwealth Attorney budget.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Wolfskill,
Second.
second by Reverend Jones. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is just because operationally, this is the thing that makes sense to do. So rather than being under your supervision, it should be done under the supervision of Mr. Fleet. And assuming Mr. Fleet wants to do this.
Mr. Fleet, do you want to make this transfer? Is this acceptable to you?
He may want to provide an update on what he's done so far.
Or if you'd like to provide us with an update of what's going on here?
The county administrator and myself have been in communication. 95% of the Commonwealth is under their umbrella. It makes for a smoother transition in preparing for court, for assisting victims, getting witnesses ready for court. They have instant access to our office software program with our files. It would make for a much smoother and easier transition. The Victim Witness Coordinator's office is in the courthouse. Short term, we're looking at joining it with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, but I am in support of that. As you all know, I prosecuted in Pittsylvania County in the city of Martinsville before coming to Appomattox almost 20 years ago. And in both those locations and jurisdictions, the Victim Witness Coordinator was under the umbrella of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So we would just like to follow suit as 95% of the other Commonwealth Attorney's offices and Victim Witness Coordinator's offices in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Fleet.
Thanks, Les.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? All right. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to have the county administrator prepare the letter and submit it. Mr. Wolfskill?
Aye.
Mr. Reverend Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
And I vote aye also. All right, next up is July 5th holiday. Please see the attached email from the Circuit Court Clerk referencing Judge Nelson's order to close the courts on Friday, July 5th. A couple of board members requested this item be placed on the agenda for consideration by the board to extend the same to the county offices. I know we've done that in the past, so if someone wants to make a motion to extend the July 5th holiday to all county employees, we would entertain such a motion.
Question, no. Go ahead.
that motion.
Take your pick. Motion and seconded by,
I won't second it.
okay. Discussion?
Yes.
Does that include Ms. Adams?
The other county officers, okay, the board members that are requesting this, have they talked to the other departments in this regard? The closing July 5th. I'm assuming, hey,
Mr. Chairman, if I could address this.
Mr. Hibbs?
So I don't know who else asked for it, but I just asked for it as a, I talked to Miss Adams about it. And given that July 4th is on a Thursday, July 5th is a Friday, the court system is going to close, and so you have some offices that are closed and some that aren't. And then just the practicality of coming back for one day, just as a incentive to county employees. I think it's a good thing to do. So that's where I'm at.
I was just wondering, if they've been approached.
I wasn't approached by any certain county employee. I just felt it was the right thing to do, and I remember we did similar in other years, so. Mr. Wolfskill, what were you gonna say?
Just, does it include Ms. Adams?
Oh, this includes. All right.
This does include you, doesn't it?
He's just playing.
We have a motion in a second, right?
Yes, motion has been made and seconded to give all county employees the 5th of July off, so they be in sync with the courts. Mr. Carter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfskill? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
I vote aye also. County employees have 5th agenda off, or 5th of July off.
Honestly, I don't think any county employees will object to that. They will be very honored.
All right, consent agenda. Consent agenda includes approval of bills, minutes, supplemental appropriations, line item transfers, and fund transfers. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of a board member prior to the vote on the consent agenda. Agenda items removed from the consent agenda shall be considered by the board individually in order in which they were removed from the consent agenda immediately following consideration of the consent agenda. Any changes or to the consent agenda for anybody? If not, we'll take a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Mr. Carter's moved to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Wolfskill, second. Discussion? All right, call the question. Mr. Wolfskill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Reverend Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Hips? Aye. I vote aye also. Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have the attorney's report. Administration report. Ms. Adams?
You've got my report before you. There's something to be added at the end. I've got some more information that I need to be sending out to the board, and that will be forthcoming.
All right. Okay, and then you have a report for your information from the Robert E. Leal Soil Conservation District meeting. And next up, we have supervisor concerns. This time is for individual board members to share information with other members of the board and the public. Items presented under this heading require action, will be done at future meetings, or to request additional information from staff members. No item presented under this heading shall be acted upon at this meeting without unanimous consensus of the board. Mr. Wolfskill, any concerns? Reverend Jones?
No concerns, but comment. I'd like to commend the town for the wonderful project that's taking shape on 24. It's just absolutely amazing. That's on my jogging route. So, after a while, I'll be able to jog on the sidewalk right there. So it's just wonderful to see that work going forward.
Mr. Carter?
I just had one item here. I'd like to say that on the roadside cleanup, it's $1,708 is the best $1,708 I've seen that we've spent.
Amen to that, Mr. Carter. Mr. Hips? Nope. All righty. My comment would be is I'm waiting, Mr. Jones, for the town to do that much renovation to the rest of the That looks great.
It's gonna be great.
Although I think VDOT gets most of the credit for that. But my other comment is, I had the opportunity to visit our animal shelter today, and I found it very well kept. The young ladies were pleasant, helpful. The place is clean and just like it's professionally run. I'd like to send out my kudos to those animal shelter people. And now I guess it's time to go into closed session.
Okay. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County desires to discuss in a closed meeting the following matters: discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body concerning the Department of Social Services Board and the county attorney. Whereas pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in a closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Appomattox County does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matters in a closed meeting. I just need that in a motion.
And before we do that, one alibi. Those of you that stick around or return after we get out of the closed session, we must clear this room immediately so that the voting people can set this room up for voting tomorrow morning. So when this is done, please vacate as quick as you can. All right. Do I have a motion on going into closed session?
So moved.
Mr. Hipp? Mr. Wolfskill, second. Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Mr. Hips?
Aye.
Mr. Wolfskill? Reverend Jones?
Aye.
I vote aye also.